Hey, welcome everybody. On today's show, imagine launching a $1 billion startup with AI as your co-founder. It may at this point sound like sci-fi, maybe $1 billion sounds too high. Well, it's starting to happen right now. In 2025, we have entrepreneurs are building empire-sized buildings with maybe teams of one, teams of two, with them and their AI partners. Some are scaling faster than any startup in history, while others are going to crash and burn. We know this, but here's the $1 million question: when everyone has access to genius level AI in the future, how are you going to stand out? Is AI more of the ultimate unfair advantage, or is it making it impossible to build a sustainable competitive advantage if everybody has it? So that's what we're going to be talking about today on the show. Today is February 24th. This is the Daily AI Show, and I am joined by Junmi, Beth, Andy, and I'm Brian. So welcome to the show. Hey, guys. I hope you guys had a good weekend. Always nice to see everybody's face back on Monday morning and kind of know that we have 5 more days of hanging out together. So I always like a Monday because I'm like, oh, good. Yay, we get to do this again. So what are your guys' thoughts as like we sort of get into this conversation? I know I have a lot. Uh, I've been, as somebody who has started 2 businesses pre AI, I often think about, one was brick and mortar and one was online. And I often think about how I would approach those businesses differently, and not just a little differently, like wholesale differently than I did. The gym was in 2011, the CrossFit gym, and 2010, excuse me, we opened that. 2011. I get back from Iraq in 2010. 2011, we opened that gym. And then a few years later, when we had the nutrition company, which was an online company. And I just think to, what I would have done. Now, I didn't grow these businesses to multi-million. I was not a single billionaire. I mean, I probably wouldn't, I don't know. My life would probably be different had I grown these to $1 million companies. And I did. One was much more successful. The brick and mortar ended up being more successful than the online, which was more of a learning lesson along the way. But there's no doubt about it. You can't help but go back to those experiences in your life and say, ooh, had I had the tools of today, and more even crucially, maybe the tools of a very near tomorrow, as we start to see more with agents, how would that have changed how I did it? Would I have had less employees? Well, with the gym, it's a physical business. You still need people to be in there, but it would have made it easier for me to wear more hats because I would not have had to had every hat on. I could have relied on AI to wear some of those hats for me. And I think even more crucially, to fight groupthink. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that, because one of the things my wife and I we worked on the site. We both were on both businesses, but at one point we were both fully working for the nutrition business. My wife Amanda is a wonderful, brilliant dietitian, and we often worried about being in a house together. And we were in a room this size, and we would bounce ideas off of each other, but it can be a bit of an echo chamber, as any business can be. It can be a little bit of groupthink. You're like, well, was that an original idea or a good idea, or was that just because Amanda and I wanted that to happen as owners of the company? Certainly partial, and have a skewed a view of it. And now I think with AI, that's totally something you can solve for. I don't necessarily have to jump on with a business coach like Jimmy and jump on a call. I can actually create other AIs that think differently about my business and ensure that I'm having different points of view. What do you guys? I don't know. I know that's a lot at once, but that, like, when I think about entrepreneurship, I obviously think about my businesses. What do you guys think of as you think about the age of AI and where we are now? And sort of like my intro, what happens if everybody has it?
Okay, I'm going to jump in. I think of entrepreneurship as coming up with an idea that hasn't been done before, or has some unique selling propositions or unique distribution advantages, or just addresses a niche market that maybe other products out there in the marketplace haven't quite solved for. And one of the first things that AI can do is vet whether your idea matches up with some of the advantages that are necessary in order for you to succeed with that idea, if and when you find the team and the money to actually deliver that at a reasonable scale into the marketplace. I want to just take an aside here and talk about a methodology that's used in entrepreneurial startups, and that's called the lean startup methodology. which aims to eliminate the huge risks that are associated with building out an idea on the strength of your confidence in that idea and spending all that money and then putting it out after a stealth period in order to, retain the intellectual property that you have and put it out. It tries to avoid the risk of that not really matching up with an eager and receptive market by flipping that a little bit and saying, okay, no, what you're going to do is you're going to build out a very small and incomplete version of your product and put it out in front of some set of customers, and then iteratively go through feedback loops that refine that product before you actually find the essential result, which is a product market fit. That's what you're really trying to get to. So AI supports that in a beautiful way. One is you can spend a good bit of time measured in days, not months, vetting your idea with AI. And AI can run simulations for you. It can, give you, using the deep research functions that are now available to you, it can really kind of present to you as a good practiced entrepreneur who's a mentor of yours, might try to disabuse you of some sort of false assumptions that you have about whether this is truly a viable, tractable product market a combination. The AI can support that. And then there's lots of other ways that AI can help, but I'll stop right there and just say that the whole process of becoming an entrepreneur is coming up with, vetting, and proving an idea to the point where you can bring in the two other essential components. The idea's got to be high quality. It has to have distinct advantages. And then you've got to bring in a team for scaling, and you've got to bring in money to support that team for scaling. The cost of doing the first part of it, refining the idea, has dropped dramatically with the advent of AI.
I think the cost of the second part has dropped as well, or could. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of businesses where maybe investment rounds are going to happen, but I do think because of AI, there's also some bootstrap ways. Let's say you get past that first thing and you feel like you vetted and validated your MVP of an idea, and now you're going to get it out to trusted people. Maybe you're going to give it to them for free. If it's a digital solution, maybe you're going to charge a lower amount. And what you really want is that feedback, right? For the iterative loops that you're going to go through, like you're talking about, Andy. When you're ready to scale, though, I do think there are AI solutions that are now in the form of even just automations and workflows that can really help you have basically coworkers that are AI, that are happening in the background, that are maybe beneficial to somebody who does not have the money or doesn't have the means to go get the money. I mean, there's so many businesses too that choose to bootstrap and don't want to do investment rounds because they want to retain control or whatever their reasons are. So I don't know. I feel like it can help beyond that, but I see what your point is in terms of like being so valuable in that first part, because it's so easy to say. I'm the first to admit it because I made this mistake with the gym. I wanted to open up the gym because I wanted my job to be a CrossFit instructor because I had taught karate and all those things in my life. And I truly enjoyed standing in front of classes and teaching people and helping people become fit. I still do to this day. Super, super fun for me. And so I put that priority first before maybe stress testing the idea. Not that CrossFit gyms, it wasn't. I mean, CrossFit gyms existed well more where you and Jimmy are than where I was in Tampa at the time. There wasn't a whole lot of CrossFits around here. Now they're everywhere, right? But at the time there wasn't. There was only 13 in a very large metro area around me. And I chose what I wanted to do first before maybe I looked better at location, before I looked better at what that gym would have to look like for people in my area, and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, I absolutely jumped the gun. And I just say that to say, I think a lot of people do. They have an idea, but of course they want it to work because they get excited about it. And it's very easy to go like,
right.
you know.
But to Andy's point, I agree with you, because to Andy's point, the AI can help you avoid mistakes. AI can make really great co-founder partnership decisions, but it depends on what you're asking. Right? If you're asking to vet the idea and then have a parameter around vetting the idea, then it can do that. If you're asking, give me reasons why this is a great idea so that I
Well,
can
yeah,
sell
yeah,
it to somebody,
yeah,
it can do that too.
yeah, yeah. It
Right?
will happily do that.
And did you not just vet the idea? Right? Like, no, I thought it was a
Yeah,
good idea. I was told it was a good idea. Now I have all this language about why it's a good idea. I've never asked, right? So
yeah.
it makes it so easy to make really great it makes it so easy to take advantage of opportunities. It makes it so easy to make mistakes. Jimmy, I know that you were thinking about saying something.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight on the democratization side of what AI can provide is part of a entrepreneurship or business startup, and both Andy and Brian, you talked about how essentially how empowering in these different aspects that AI can do for you. And Beth, when you're talking about AI co-founder, that's the light bulb, right? We hear about people able to create personas for very C-suite aspects, or your department heads, or whatever aspect of business that needs to be analyzed or provide insight, information, mentorship, those kinds of things that really helps anyone who just has a good idea but doesn't have the other skills go much further, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's the thing that I find most enjoyable about this is, all of us, I'm sure, have have had our hands in the startup world, and what that what levels of layers and stress and trying to figure out things that puts on people. But that's also what makes it really exciting is I can just take any idea, I can run it through a vetting process, I can have it analyzed, and I can have input given to me about, hey, this is my idea, this is how I want to see it, how well is it going to work, right? And all of those kinds of aspects. But I can do it for cheap. It'll be a lot less bootstrap needed. It'll be a lot less VC money I have to go for,
Sure.
and things like that, depending on the business as well, right? And we're
There,
talking from, tiny SaaS. I know how to program, so let's write up a program. And even nowadays, that's less of a barrier to go through. But just the ability for anyone to take their available skill set and enhance all or fit in the puzzle pieces they don't have to allow them to achieve that's my big takeaway. That's what I really enjoy about what AI offers. Now, there's also going to be the other side of that, but that's the narrative I like to.
I think it's a good point, Jimmy. But I also want to point out too that entrepreneurship does obviously. I mean, I said it in the intro about like, could you build $1 billion company? We've discussed this idea before. Who will have the first one person $1 billion company? I don't believe that exists. I could be wrong about that. And we're talking about clearly starting something from scratch, not necessarily having a treasure trove, maybe from parents or otherwise that have been gifted to them. We're just talking about literally starting from scratch like we are right now. But also, I would imagine, I don't know what the numbers are in this, the vast majority of entrepreneurs are small businesses like I was talking about in a local town or whatever. And maybe you do something that's brick and mortar and it has a physical location, or maybe it is just a digital, solution. I've always liked the idea that, you don't have to you don't have to change the world. To Andy's point, and it's your point too, Beth, like if I can quickly iterate and deploy a minimally viable product, now with AI, that can be done. Even if you know no code or anything, you can do that for limited money and get something out there. And so let's say you build something that's a minimally viable product and it eliminates your Netflix bill and your Amazon Prime bill every year. So we're talking about $15 a month on one of them and $150 or whatever Amazon is a year, right? So break that out or whatever. isn't that still, if you did that and were able to replace that with a small SaaS product or small digital product or something like that, that's still entrepreneurship, even though you're not necessarily living off of that. And of course, you can continue to iterate on that, to Andy's point, and build from there. And I think that's what gets me excited, is that I now feel like with little roadblocks, it's capable. People are capable of doing this, even if they've never had this before. And I've met so many people who said, I had to learn everything on my own because my parents weren't entrepreneurs. So I didn't sit in a shop and watch it happen all day. Some people have a leg up because of that, because their parents owned a shop or whatever, and they watched customers come in and out. They knew about finances to a certain point. They understood supply chain. They understood. I know people who have kids that, friends who have like, one is a sushi restaurant, and their kids are literally growing up in that business. That's a leg up, right? Because they have a better understanding of maybe how that part of the business works. But now, even if you don't, what gets me excited is I think you can get over that hump, even if you have parents or nobody in an extended family who's ever done anything in entrepreneurship. I feel like that's less of a hurdle now than it ever has been in the past, because of some of the AI tools and what you guys are talking about. Carl, you joined us as well. Obviously you're in a situation where you have started, with a partner and stuff. I don't know how much you want to talk about 0 to 60, but that's something you have done in the last year. And so, how are you approaching or using AI? It's a little meta because you have AI services and such through 0 to 60, but never mind that. How did you and your partner use AI as a small team when you were thinking about initially 0 to 60, maybe vetting it initially, the idea, but then also like getting to the point where you have your first client, let's say? We can't hear you. Your mic is on, but we can't hear you. Is it because you went out and in? Yeah. I don't know why that's a thing, Beth. You're on mute too. Everybody's on mute. Can't hear anybody.
Carl, do what Andy does to fix it, and I don't know what happens either.
Yeah, I don't know why that happens, guys. We're sorry about that. That's not us. That's we think a Streamlabs issue. Sometimes when you go out and come back in, it messes with it. How about now, Carl? Is it working?
I hope so.
Yes, it is. Working for me. All right, great. Go ahead, Carl.
I think the big thing that we talked about was that, hey, we got to practice what we preach, right? So the whole point is, if we're going to start this, then everything has to revolve around it. So essentially, from a custom GPTs to automations to digital assistants to running everything through literally every single thing that we could think of through AI, and everything that we do through AI. And to this day, I think like there's not very many of us, but we're doing, I think, the job of like 10 to 12 people versus what we have, right? And a couple of contractors too. So that in itself, I think that proves that as we grow, like my ideal situation is maybe 10, 15, that's max. But I want to be able to compete.
Do you mean full-time employees? Just to clarify.
Full-time, yeah.
Okay,
that's
max 15 full-time. Okay.
Right? I think we're at 5, 6. But yeah, I want to compete at versus something that is, say, 50 to 100, because I think it can be done. And we're seeing it every day. And so that's how we look at it. And then just the nature of our business in terms of what we do for our clients, everything stems around it, right? So like discovery calls, when we meet with clients and do discovery with their individual departments, we record those conversations and then we run them through, and then it captures everything that we want to capture, gives us the outputs. Then the strategies we create, the summaries that we create, even going through the process of the recommended pilots that we build. I think when you have, and it's even better because like that's why I love O3 Mini High, just the ability to think through things, and O1 Pro, there's no way without these tools, mind you, without these tools, this business wouldn't exist. But like just that alone is for us. When you talk about game changers, that is literally the game changer for us. So our entire business is built on it. And it's funny because like the more hype there is, the better it is, because we start seeing businesses panic. They're like, oh crap, we really should get on this. We're like,
Right.
oh. And that's what it is. So that's kind of, but from a use case perspective, this, I think we keep talking to clients and say, hey, there's going to be two things that's going to happen. One is you are going to, set your foundation and compete, or there's going to be a smaller company that's going to come up. Their entire process is revolving around AI, operations wise, everything, that they can compete with you. Let's say you have 150, 200 employees, 300 employees. They only have 20, but they can do the exact job that you can do, but they don't have any, like one company was like, oh, I got to go clear this with corporate AI IT or whatever,
Right.
whatever the title is. I'm like, sure, no problems. But the thing is, the 10-person company has clear nothing, right?
Yeah.
No clearance, no nothing. And that's the weird thing too, because when we say that, I think you get a little grimace from the IT folks, but it's like, that's the world you live in. So you can't be risk averse. You can't be, well, we got to treat it like any other tool and play it safe with Microsoft Copilot. And I was like, no, you can't, because these guys are going to whoop you. And there's nothing you can do about it, because while you're taking your time trying to deploy and talk about it and set up your AI councils, which is all good practice, this 5-10-person companies be like, okay, sure, whatever, we'll do everything that, like, for example, we're doing right now. And here's a funny thing. Like, I talked about this too. Okay, we're testing out the ability using deep research to compete, to essentially run paid search for a client. The client's like, yeah, this is an amazing idea, do it. So it's like, okay, for $200 a month, we attach an intern, and we told the intern, you will do everything the AI tells you to do. Do not deviate, do nothing. And she was like, okay, sure, perfect. And what you're doing is just going to Google AdWords, take out reports, all the reports, upload it into deep research, and make the recommendations, and follow it. Follow script. Don't deviate. Don't do anything. And we want to test it a month against all their other campaigns. And I just want to see how it performs.
Yeah.
And
I can't wait for that show, by the way, when you
And
report
this
back on
is
that.
this is literally
I'm
the
super
epitome.
excited. Yes.
Yeah, this is literally the epitome of what we talked about when monkey fingers became a thing, right? Like, if we go all the way back to the show when we were talking about it, Carl was talking about, are we going to come up with a point where all of the decisions are being made by the AI? And I pretty sure I said yeah, and we're just the monkey fingers, right? That is literally, I don't know how, like, are we like 6 months away from that? 9 months away from that to actually being a real thing? That's wild.
I mean, but look, people putting this in the comments too, and I get it. Like, does it just make everything homogenous? Does it mix everything together? If everybody has the same AI tools, and that's a big statement. That's a big if there, because we know there's plenty of places in the world that do not have reliable internet connections, and that is a equity problem at that level, right? I mean, not everybody has even the $20 a month or whatever to play with maybe one of these tools. And we had a whole show about what you can do for free, and it's a lot. So that's not necessarily a roadblock, but it's a bit of a roadblock, right? But also, like, the question becomes, well, what makes you different? If there's some competitive first mover advantage here. Carl is certainly dealing with that and helping clients, and it's going to help them tremendously compete in their marketplace. But we can assume over time, I don't know how many years it'll be, people will catch up. And then, just like I was reading a article today about AI tools like Clay that could do AI powered lead gen to everybody. And but also now you have like superhumans and things like that on the other side. And what really happens if everybody can send 1,000 AI emails? Does it? Do we just race to the bottom essentially? So then there was an article. There was somebody on LinkedIn, and they were like, "Well, hot take. It's going to be about personal communications, connections." And Carl, I think that brings it back to your point, because I know this, so I would love for you to share this too. A big part of your business with 0 to 60 is the handshake, is the in-person part of it. So I think this is a great thing to call out. You are an AI consulting company. Stop me if I say any of this wrong. You're an AI consulting company who, as you pointed out, is using AI wherever possible to stay lean and basically have AI coworkers. However, I think what's really smart is you know the value of being in a room and talking about these solutions across a table, across a room, across whatever, and how valuable that is. So you use AI, but you're not here saying, "Oh, I don't have to leave my house anymore." You're saying, "Hey, for this to work, it requires that human level connection," which will be your competitive advantage against other people who stand up businesses similar to 0 to 60. At least this is my opinion on this, who don't. They think they can do everything from behind the screen. And I think your humanness gives you a competitive advantage in an AI world.
I think that you hit it right on, because you can only do so much behind a Teams, a Meets, and a Zoom screen. When you're actually in the room talking, showing, and doing a handshake, there's just something different about that human connection. So the thing is, it's very, very hard like to compete with us on that level, because people, we go to your place, we show up, we sit down, we have some fun with it. And that's the thing, is like, when I see some of these other agencies and their business model, I do not know their business model. They could have an amazing business model. I hear like, whatever amount they make and so on. I just think like the way that we want to run it is a little bit different, where we want to be like, we want to be your partner and we'll show up, right? We want to be there with you. So we take a little bit of the old school type consulting with a little bit of like, it's not like, once we go into a project, do we have to be in the room together? Not really. But initially, when we do it, when we talk about it, when we present in front of your leadership, when we present in front of like all the plans, we always show up. And then people can ask us questions that they'd be a little bit kind of maybe shy to ask on a Zoom call. They can just, "Hey, can you talk to me for 2 minutes?" Cool. Yeah. Could you come by and yeah, let's chat a bit. Yes. And I think that is the difference. And it's harder to do that when you're behind. Mind you, the reach is a little bit different, because you can definitely reach more people. But I feel like that's just the nature of our business, especially the type of businesses, because we're targeting like traditional companies. And a lot of like, they, like it or not, they're the ones who want their people in the office. They want they want like, that's how they believe like how businesses should be. And so we kind of cater a little bit to that too.
Right. Yeah. It wouldn't do you a whole lot of favor or a lot of good to be always doing Zoom with a company that has everybody in their office and doesn't have a hybrid or a remote policy for whatever their reasons are.
Yep.
Like you said, the traditional companies where that makes a lot of sense, and that's that's why they do it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Andy, I'd be curious. You haven't said a whole lot. I know we've been talking, but I'd be curious to hear your feedback on this, Andy, because I mean, again, we've talked. For anybody who doesn't know, you can sort of fill them in, but you held a CXO position. You were at Life. I always say Life Aid or Fit Aid. What's the right name for that?
Life Aid Beverage Company is
that's the parent name, right? Okay, Life Aid Beverage Company, as well as other places that you worked. I don't mean to just say that's the only place, but
I think more relevant than that, although Life Aid, when I joined it, was a startup. I was one of the original advisors to that company.
Okay.
And I literally, reviewed their original pitch deck before they had raised any money other than what they were spending themselves, their own personal investments in the development of the idea. So I've been involved with that entrepreneurial effort all the way through to the point where it's a $50 million annual beverage company that services primarily CrossFit gyms, but is also available through many other, grocery outlets, etc.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an entrepreneurial experience, but I didn't have the idea. I didn't do anything other than validate the idea for the guys who were, starting out that way. They didn't come from the beverage industry. And so one of the first points I'll make is that one of the things that's a virtue of great founders with great vision is that they have a deep understanding of the market that they're trying to address. And that's not absolutely essential, but it is nonetheless a big advantage for a founder who has experience in that area. A second point I want to make in listening to Carl, I was thinking what Carl's talking about is a consultative sale. So he's focusing on the selling process when we make the point that face-to-face, in-person interaction is definitely better than just, trying to put your shingle out there and hoping that people will create inbound demand for your product. If you can really beat the bushes as your business partner does, Carl, and you can go and do an in-person sale, that's going to be very important, particularly in the consulting business, right? You're delivering value by being an expert, and you are going to prove that expertise in person so that you develop the confidence and the validation in the mind of the customer who's going to commit to you as the consultant. But there are ideas out there that aren't at all related to person-to-person selling. So for example, Airbnb, a tremendous idea. Those founders never met with, other than to, talk to sample persons who might be a part of that marketplace on either side, people wanting to rent a very short-term engagement with somebody's personal property, or personal property owners who wanted to sell time sharing basically in their property. And it originally started out with like, hey, here's my spare bedroom in San Francisco for an event that, has already booked up all the hotel rooms. So you can come stay at my house with me, but you're going to have to, understand that it's a very kind of modest, hospitality arrangement. So that creation of a marketplace like that is a very different entrepreneurial effort that doesn't require much in terms of in-person selling, other than for the founders raising the money necessary to build the incredible architecture
Sure. Yeah.
Airbnb represents globally in software. So I think that what would be important is to go back to the startup idea, right? So the idea that Carl and his partner had was there's demand out there. There's going to be increasing demand for this service. Like, where do you find experts who can actually implement, like not only design the process, but actually implement the tools that will accelerate your adoption of AI? And I think of Carl's business, 0 to 60 AI, as that. This is accelerating the adoption by small and medium businesses of AI tools within their companies. Okay, so go back to the idea. I'm going to use an example that I stumbled upon just looking around here that is right in alignment with this idea of entrepreneurial acceleration as a result of the advent of AI. And this company is out there. It's called oneday.org. And it combines the idea of a community of people involved in an accelerator that uses mentors that are previously successful entrepreneurs, assisting individual entrepreneurs. But the sort of the unique selling proposition is that you pay them a fraction of what it would cost you to go to a major MBA program. And when you go through their 18-month program, you come out not only with a viable startup that's actually generating revenue, but you get an MBA, an accredited MBA for doing that.
Nice.
Check it out, oneday.org. It's a really interesting idea. Like it's got some juice, right? Because it's like, oh no, I don't have to just stop everything I'm doing and take this big risk on this idea I'm not sure about. but now I'm going to get my MBA in the process, and it's going to cost me only tens of thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars in opportunity income loss and the cost of tuition to go to Stanford, graduate school of business, for example.
Yeah, and I love that idea, because it's not about sitting in a classroom and learning from a professor necessarily about what it looks like to be an entrepreneur. It's like, no. Well, like, let's use your idea, or at least I'm assuming, let's use your idea and let's actively learn through that process, so that it's all tangible, so that it's all specific to what you're trying to do, which is
or it
education.
invites you, if you don't have a good idea, but you definitely think that you want to leave the corporate world and you want to start out doing your own business. The very first module of their process, and it's an 18-month process, remember, but the very first module is the use of an ideation tool that they've built that basically sifts through what you know, what you don't know, what you're interested in, and generates ideas and vets those ideas. And this is an AI assistant that's going to produce that. And I haven't tried that particular product. Right. I don't have I'm not going to apply to their program in order to experience that product.
Use the AI tool.
You can imagine that AI tool is really, really useful. And it will result in, with the assistance of a mentor and with the community-based programs that they have among all the people who are working simultaneously on their individual projects, who can provide feedback on your ideas as well. Absolutely. You can resolve an idea that's tractable in the marketplace using their AI tools. And then, of course, one of the things that they're going to lead you forward to is using AI and no-code tools to build your MVP. And that's clearly a module in their 18-month process.
Yep.
So very early on in the process. So you're going to actually put something into the market just for feedback purposes and see if it's attracting a good fit with customers. And they're saying, yeah, I love this product and I would pay for it.
Nice.
Then one last point is that once you've gone through that, then, I don't know that they're going to use Gamma specifically, but Gamma is a tool that not only can generate ideas around a product for free for you, but will present you with a deck that's fashioned for the purposes of pitching to investors, early angel investors, for example. And so Gamma is an AI tool that takes one of the next steps in that entrepreneurial process, which is selling your idea before you sell the MVP product to the consumers. And so you might be able to raise a small amount of money just to support you alone, like $25,000 from this person, $10,000 from this person. But the thing you're going to have to sell in order to raise those angel and or family and friends funds is going to be that pitch deck that really is convincing, that tells them with beautiful imagery and clear exposition of the advantages of your idea in the market. That's going to be a piece of that process.
Nice. One of the things that I was thinking as you were talking was something that came up during the research for this show. Founders.ai is a similar but different kind of idea, where it's not an MBA, you don't get that, but it gives you a process that vets that, like, you apply to be a part of it, same kind of thing. You apply to be a part of it, but then it includes the idea vetting, the building of the MVP, and then the funding, because this is created by VCs who want to invest in your product and help it get great. Brian's back, I can see. Thanks.
Yeah. One of the things as I was listening to you, Andy, and one day, something that I would love to see is, not maybe necessarily an MBA, but something that's focused on helping, teenagers or young teenagers in this area as well. Because I think the generation's coming up, and I have a 14-year-old. So I'm familiar with that age group at this point, and looking at her ability and adaptability to AI tools and stuff, it's just very easy for her. Obviously, she grew up in it, and for all the reasons people want to say, oh, the next generation won't do this or that. Everybody wants to pat their own generation on the back, right? Like, oh, yeah, we had it different, But I look at this next generation and I go, man, they are primed for building and creating and being entrepreneurs. And I do see a future where it's very common for my daughter to have friends who all have businesses at some level. Now, that might be a $100 a month, income type investment. They might have people who have total side gigs or side hustles where it's bringing in quite literally half their income, and they're able to maybe what they love doing more than anything else is bartending. But maybe bartending wasn't ever going to be that windfall of a job, right? But they love it. They love it for whatever reason. And so they create this $50,000 other dollar AI solution that they're an entrepreneur of, and it's up and running. And so they can go be a bartender because that's what fulfills them or whatever. And I'm just using one example. I just think this is going to happen. We're going to see this so commonly that you're going to have this sort of like the idea of full-time employees, I think, is going to change and shift, that it would be much more common in the future for my daughter to be more of a 1099 or a fractional type employee of maybe 2 or 3 different companies where she gives time to them, but then also has her own things going on the side. And I can only say for my daughter and her friends, they're always coming up with ideas. They always have entrepreneurial, whether you want to call them entrepreneurial or not, they always have ideas. They're always thinking. It's such a creative age, so to have something that supports teenagers in this area too, and shows them some of the potential of the tools, because I mean, my daughter is fully capable of using Perplexity's deep research. I was just using it over the weekend with my wife, and what she was doing. And to your point about how valuable something like that could be for fleshing out an idea. So I don't know. I would love to see something like that happen at a younger level, because an MBA is great, but what's the oneday.org for 10 years earlier? That'd be
Or
interesting.
they actually have a bachelor's degree as well.
Okay, so they do.
If you don't want to get the MBA, I didn't look at that particular stream.
No, it's fine. Yeah. Maybe it's an alternative to college then, I mean, which is, I'll have to look at the website more. I have it up on my screen, but obviously I'll look at it after. But it's a good idea, right? And I think it'll be interesting to see how this next generation picks up the idea of being an AI entrepreneur. And the barrier is going to be so low. And I think it's going to be very common for kids to be building these small businesses that are, whatever their operating costs are going to be minimal, and they're able to run it from their apartment, from their dorm room, from their whatever. And it's going to be much, much more common to talk to somebody and be like, oh, what do you do on the side? Oh, I have a little business that does this. Oh, I have a little business that does that, whereas now you wouldn't necessarily be like, oh my God, you have a little side business. And I didn't know that. I think in the future, this is going to be it'll be like people saying they have a social media account, for little side businesses. And maybe one of those pops off and ends up being the full business if they want it to be. But I think what we'll actually see is multiple small business ideas, not just one or one focus, not putting all your eggs in one basket, but maybe having 5, 6, or 7 different small sort of micro businesses that they've been able to use AI to innovate in all the things we've talked about today. And they're just sort of running out there for them. I don't know. It sounds like a cool way for me, for the future. I think it'll definitely happen.
Let me add another angle, which is if you're looking to become an entrepreneur, the idea that you come up with is going to be strategic in one of 3 ways. The successful ideas that you come up with will be strategic in one of 3 ways. One is it'll be the low cost solution. And AI has the potential to replicate a business out there and steal market share from them by being lower cost than what they had to spend in order to get to the service provision that they have in their particular implementation in that market. And this was talked about early on in the advent of AI, which is, oh, wow, you can actually take something like Airbnb and you can build your own. And instead of having 1,000 engineers back behind the scenes running their platform, you can do it with a team of 20. And this is Carl's strategy as well. I'm going to be the low cost provider of these advanced consulting services, and I'm going to have a high margin business as a result of that. The next one is differentiation. Differentiation means that you have something unique and valuable that the others don't provide. And AI can support that in creative ideation, like exploring the boundaries of what's available out there and finding some different facet of it that actually would provide you with a differentiator that's meaningful to the market. So that's what I think most sort of innovative entrepreneurs are looking for. Is I want to create an innovation. I want to have a differentiation that makes me different and sellable compared to all the rest, because I've got some special sauce. And then the final one is focus. And that is, I'm going to focus on a particular niche market that I have some expertise in, and I'm just going to provide the most competent solution for that narrow market. And this is an area where in the chat even today, people have been noting that there's a possibility of creating vertical solutions in a fairly narrow space. And that's the focus. Like we're not trying to be everything to all people. We're focusing on this one area. So think about those three things as you think about your ideas. Are you doing it to achieve success through low cost positioning in the market, in the competitive landscape? Are you doing it because you have something that's unique and special, because you've innovated and provided differentiation from all the rest of the players? Or are you focusing on something that you understand and know, and or are in direct conversation with that market space and can really provide a customized solution to them?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. In the comments, I've definitely been talking about it. Gwen and Justin and Jude have been talking about it as well. And Justin just said, he was responding to Gwen, who said, Gwen had said, how many kids have a business before hitting college? It's becoming more common. Or is it becoming more common? I mean, I don't have numbers on that, Gwen. I think it is. Justin said, Gwen, it depends on the kid. There are 15-year-olds with hugely successful YouTube and social media pages. Too bad that didn't exist when I was a kid. Maybe I wouldn't be broke on there. I agree, but also like that takes a certain set of skills as well. I think a lot of kids look to like YouTube creators the way kids used to look at, I want to be Michael Jordan, right? I want to be like Mike. And then future Kobe and so on and so forth. It's Kobe and Michael Jordan both had an ability to put in the hours, right? Like to do the free throw shot, whatever, 1,000 times or whatever, and get to that level of skill. And then people go, I don't want to do all that, right? And so I see the same thing with kids with the YouTube. You go, well, it doesn't just happen. There's people like, Mr. Beast who obsessed over it and got like 0 views for years and still somehow managed to stay motivated to keep doing what he was doing in order to crack it because he loved it so much. And so, yeah, I look at that too. And I go, yeah, there's a lot of kids that, want to move towards the social media until they realize that being the influencer or whatever isn't quite the cush job it is made out to be. It's actually a very, very difficult job to do that. Even this little show, right? What we do and create, it takes effort from a lot of us in order to put on a show 5 days a week. It doesn't just happen, so while this could be seen, the Daily AI Show could be seen as an entrepreneurial effort. It is, it's a business. It still takes a lot of effort to do that, even though we're bringing more and more AI into it to help us along the way. So I don't know, maybe that's a good follow-up question for you guys, or a wrap-up question here. We're a team of, let's say, 6. How many people are we with AI? Carl was talking about how like he's 5 or 6, but he operates like a team of 15. Where we are with the AI show, right? The Daily AI Show right now, what do you think we operate as?
I think
Probably
I'm
50.
at least 5. Also,
That's like I'm good for 5.
maybe slightly more than that.
Sorry, I thought we operated as 5, so we're actually inefficient. So it's actually 6 of us, but we actually operate as 5 people. So we're even worse with AI.
That's hilarious. Jimmy,
What do you think, Jimmy?
I was gonna say probably 50 because
You think so?
I think we yeah, I think so. I think each of us can pull about 10 people's worth. If you're looking at what the traditional roles are, it might be pushing up to that number. But I think,
Yeah.
especially what we have plans for the rest of the year and how we
Yeah.
want to, add things and expand upon. Yeah, I think we'll hit the 50 mark by the end of the year.
That's higher than I would have
I,
thought. What do you think, Andy?
I think Junmi, because he's carrying such a heavy load for us, and we, only a couple of us, Beth included, not me for sure, have actually had the experience of what it takes to produce all of the outputs of this show, not just this live performance, but all of the posts that are clipped from these live things that go into the various social media channels like TikTok, like Instagram. Oh, I don't know if we go to Instagram or not. See, I'm not involved in those things. So I think it does feel like there's 50 of us doing that if you're Junmi or Beth who are having to do that hard, heavy lifting. But I think it's a smaller number. But I believe that, we get by without anybody other than this group that you see on the screen actually putting out effort. And major podcasts that have this same level of productivity daily, at least have a producer and a couple of assistants who are doing all of that work for them. Now, in order to afford those people, you've got to get to a scale of audience that is actually monetizing your video product. But anyway, I think that we're probably operating as if we are, instead of a total of 6 people who are callable, if you will, I think we're probably in the vicinity of 8 or 9, right? There are some, if we added one full-time person to do work like this, it would take a lot off of our plates.
Right.
But we don't need to do that. Why? Because we've highly automated the process. And Junmi and Beth are principal among that. Brian, you as well. I think I'll speak for me and Carl when it comes to the actual work product of this show. Neither Carl nor myself are actually directly involved in that workflow.
Andy and Carl are just talent, which is very important.
Yes.
We're doing some other stuff, but
Yeah.
the other piece of that, I think, is also saying part of our magic is all of us, but part of the challenge is also all of us, because the closest competitors that I see are one-person podcast, right? Where all of the decisions can get made in that one person's head, and then they lead that. We are actually still very much a wonderful collaboration. Which has its own sense of time in its execution.
And then listen, it's challenging, right? Because there's equal people. We all came into this equally, so one of us does not have greater control over this show than another. So that's great, and that also obviously causes friction, right? Because like we all have different ideas on how the show should grow, and none of them are wrong or right. They're all different ideas, and we're trying to do exactly what this show is about, which is saying like, well, hold on, let's see how far would that get us if we put more effort into that area. Okay, who's going to do that work? Okay, well, if it's not a who, it's what AI could possibly solve for that. And then what usually happens is, okay, what AI can solve for that, what are the actual tasks that we're wanting to be done? And that also causes more work, because what that usually does is expose that we or any other company doesn't necessarily have a handle on exactly how things get done. Small companies, large companies, or other. And that's a competitive advantage of somebody who's starting out, who has a sound understanding of AI, is that if they do, that they know that the way that they can grow through AI coworkers is by being laser clear on how different parts and processes work, which, by the way, you can use AI to define those. It's not like you have to do that on your own. So one AI role might be, help me write out the steps. Another AI might be actually implementing those steps. There might be a third AI coworker who is looking at the output of those steps and making corrections along the way. Me as the human, once I get past that initial part, I may not need to be involved till we're 95% to the end of a check mark. And then I may come in at the end and go, yeah, no, this, that, the other, whatever. So that's it. I think people have a competitive advantage who understand this today because they know how to set up systems and they're not painting themselves in corners. If you're working in AI today, you're not doing yourselves any favors if you don't work with structured data, right? And all that stuff, all the stuff I always talk about. If you're working with AI today, you know that system prompts and how they break down certain steps are going to be valuable to you. So if you know that going in, you don't paint yourself in a corner. You go, wait, hold on a second. I want to take on this next thing. I want my business to grow this area. How would I do that? How would I tell a human to do that? Now I know what the rules are to help bring in another AI so I don't have to go pay a human necessarily to be that coworker or whatever. So it's definitely an advantage if people know what they're talking about now, understand workflows a little bit, can build a little bit in that area. Huge, huge, huge advantage at this point. Okay. Let's wrap this up for today. Appreciate all the comments and everybody in here. Thank you, Cisco and Jude and Justin and everybody else, Gwen and Greg, everybody in the comments for putting your insights into it as well and talking about what you would do as far as entrepreneurship. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about Microsoft. We talked about it a little bit last week, but they had a fairly significant quantum computer discovery, if you want, that really, really took a lot of people's notice because of what they were able to do that had not been able to been done for a decade prior. So we're going to talk all about that tomorrow. Like, why is that such a big deal? Why did what Microsoft announced? What kind of impact does that have on the AI industry? Because a lot of times supercomputers and quantum don't necessarily, or quantum computing rather, not super, and AI, people don't always see the links there. So we'll be talking about all that tomorrow. Wednesday's the news show as always. Thursdays, we're going to be talking about robots. And Friday, we have a cool tool review coming up with potentially NAN, which is perfectly timed because I took a 4-hour course over the weekend on N8N that was frankly amazing. So be happy to talk about all of that and why NAN is different than Make and Zapier. That'll be on Friday's show. So that's it for the guys. Come back, hang out with us tomorrow and the rest of the week. Thanks for being in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to sign up for the newsletter, you can go to thedailyAIshow.com to do so. It's free and it goes out every single Sunday. The last edition went out at 8 a.m. Eastern yesterday morning. So that's it. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Aloha.